Hello, boys and girls. Good afternoon. How are you? Here we are on this Wednesday, July 22nd of 2020. My name is Alejandro Castillo. I'm broadcasting from Mexico City, the largest city in the world. And well, I'm very, very honored that with today's guest, we are in episode 78. Thank you. Thanks a lot for everybody for watching this show. And well, today I have a great guest and Olympic gold medalist in beach volleyball in Sydney 2000, current coach of the USC women's beach volleyball team, commentator in the AVP. He does a lot of things. Thanks a lot, Dain Blanton, for being here. Regards and greetings to Santa Monica, California.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited. This is great.
No, thanks a lot. Yesterday we have here Casey Patterson, great character of volleyball.
Yeah.
Really, I really enjoyed that talk, and I hope that he can connect. I told him that today you will be here, so thanks a lot, Dane, for being here in the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Casey's a tough one to follow after. He's a funny one.
Yeah, you're a really really funny one.
He's
Uh,
a
th-
good guy.
Thanks a lot, Dane. How's everything over there? What about the 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 actual team, the coronavirus?
Yeah, it's kind of a surreal situation where it's very no one's ever been in this situation, and it's I think people are getting people are obviously a little scared of the virus because it doesn't matter what your behavior is, it seems like the virus just keeps on moving, and so it's very important that people take precautions, try to slow things down. It's such a sad situation where we've lost so many people already, and so many people have lost their livelihoods and their jobs, and many have lost their lives as well. And so it's a very strange time. I think everyone's hoping and praying that we get back to something that we would call normal. But right now, things I think are at their peak in the United States, and it's a bit scary, for people. But I think we'll make it through.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Here in Mexico, the situation is also difficult, but well, we want to return to normal as soon as
Right.
possible and see you, to see us all together in a volleyball court again. And talking about that, please tell us something about the return of beach volleyball last weekend on the AVP Champions Cup. For the
Yeah.
first weekend, there are two more weekends to come. I think this is the Wilson Cup and the Porsche Cup, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. First is the Monster Hydro Cup. The second was the Wilson, and then the Porsche Cup is the final one. It's so great. I mean, it is awesome to have live sports, to have beach volleyball is just amazing. There's no fans there because it's a very closed environment. Everyone, staff and players have been getting tested. I think I did my third test just on Monday for COVID-19, and fortunately, every player has been negative up until this point, and so that's really great news. And I think beach volleyball is a sport where you can have that social distancing in a sense. You only have one partner, you're on opposite sides of the net, and you can kind of stay separate. And so it's been just really great and much needed because so many people are so thirsty for some live sports, something that we really took for granted, right? You would never think in a million years that all sports would have stopped, but that's exactly what has happened. So anything we can get back, any positivity is awesome. And the CEO and owner of the AVP, Donald Sun, has done a tremendous job by, I guess you would say, salvaging this season. Even putting on 3 events is better than 0. And typically there would be eight to 10 events, but having these 3 in a row in Long Beach in a very safe environment and closed environment is so great. I've only heard great feedback from the fans and the players, and hopefully the second and third weekend go just as well as the first.
Yes, yeah, I hope so too. The feelings of the players. Then yesterday, Casey told me, "Hey, right now, $3,000. It sounds, or it feels like a $30,000. It's great to be back in the court."
Right. Yeah, the players. I mean, imagine if you're in the middle of your career and all of a sudden this happens. Like I said, so many things have been lost during this pandemic that it's almost a reality check, right? It's almost like you step back and you appreciate more when you just have a little bit. Even if you're used to having a lot, you appreciate things a lot more because a lot of it has been taken away.
Okay, what do you think we can expect in the next stops of the AVP Champions Cup regarding to I don't know, do you have some numbers about the rating, about the viewers in Amazon Prime?
Yeah, you know what? I haven't. They haven't released those numbers, but I think the response was great. I'm curious as to see what those numbers would be, but a lot of people watching, a lot of people that I normally don't hear from were reaching out saying, "Hey, I've been watching the Amazon Prime, I've been watching NBC, and I think that we're so many people are at home. I would expect those numbers to be pretty high because everyone is in that stay-home order, and so they're sitting on their couch and they're watching their computer or their TV, and so I think the ratings probably were at an all-time high, but I haven't seen them officially.
Okay, okay, I understand. Well, I'll be watching, and I know a lot of Mexican volleyball, beach volleyball fans will be aware of that in Amazon. Trust me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just fun to have something to watch. I hope the international circuit gets back up and running soon. So, the Olympics, if we cross our fingers and everything goes well, they'll run in Tokyo in 21, but there's also talk of them not happening. So, it'd be nice to see the international circuit start running events and see how that goes.
Yes, I hope so too. And do you think ABP will launch another initiative in the rest of the year, or no? Or this is just the testing?
For more programming and for more tournaments,
Yes, for more tournaments.
uh, I, I would hope so. If these are so successful, it looks like they have some great sponsors, and I think it's just a great time to put on sports, and people love the sport of beach volleyball. So if after this Champions Cup happens, they reevaluate, and there's an opportunity to do more during this 2020 season, then I think they'd be all for it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to making sense financially, and also getting to finish. Getting the logistics put into place. The logistics are the hardest thing. Even though there's no people there, they told me that it was one of the hardest tournaments to run logistically because everybody's getting tested, temperatures every day, questionnaires, surveys, health checks, everything is on point, wearing the mask, all those things. And pretty cool. I don't know if you saw the ball system, how the ball boys and girls never handed the ball to the players. They were put in a sanitation area, disinfected, and then they were put up on a rack so the players could get the balls directly. So that was pretty cool and pretty innovative, I thought, and another measure to protect the athlete.
Yeah, I heard Kevin Burnett on the stream saying that every ball has been sanitized every rally. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Every rally, it's
Wow.
like
Yeah.
each on each side of the courts. There's probably 10 balls on each side of the court, 10, 12 balls, and so five clean ones on the top, and then as they get the ball, they clean it, put it on the bottom, and slowly move it up to the top, and it's perfect.
Okay, it was great. It was great. Well, I hope that the next two stops could be a success. I will be watching. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Dane, do you know anything about Mexican beach volleyball? Have you played against some players in Sydney? There were a couple, Joe Sotelo and Juan Rodriguez. What do you know? What have you heard about the Mexican beach volleyball scene? Considering, I think we have a lot of potential. You know, we have a lot of beaches. We can play all around the year, but well, at the end. it's some of the part of the system that we can success. But what can you tell us about the Mexican beach volleyball?
Yeah, well, I remember the players, the team that you mentioned in 2000, they actually defeated the Australians to take over that number one seed in 2000. I don't know if you recall that or not, but the team that plays now for Mexico,
Juan
what are their
Virgen,
names?
right now, Virgen y Ontiveros.
Yes, Virgen and yeah,
Ontiveros.
Giveros,
Ontiveros, yeah.
Antiveros, yeah. Oh my gosh, what athletes those guys are! So fun to watch. So dynamic, so so consistent. They're just a great team, and they're always dangerous. And where are they now in position for the Olympics?
I don't know exactly. I think, but they are searching the qualification in
Yeah,
the Olympic points. Maybe 13 or 14. I don't know exactly.
but they're right in the mix, right?
Yes, right
Yeah,
now,
it's
yes. And well, the other couple, a very young team, Rubio and Gaxiola, they are searching the qualification via the Continental Cup next year in Mexico in Colima.
ah. Yeah, I love watching that team. They just fun to watch. Some teams are kind of flat. Other teams are very, very dynamic and very exciting to watch. And I really enjoy watching that team. I've gotten to commentate on them because I do a lot of the commentary for the international circuit when they had the major series, which is no longer happening. The major series, unfortunately, but. Yeah, I think you guys have a strong team that could, if they put it all together at the same time, that's a team that could, be a top five team or even medal.
Maybe, well, yeah, and there are, as I told you, another younger team, Güero Tiwi, Rubio, and Gaxiola. They in the last event in Qatar in March, they won in semifinals to Evandro, and this guy Rubio, I think he's 22 or 23 years old. He made
Mm-hmm.
in one match 10 points of blocking to Evandro.
Woo, that's crazy. On Avandro?
To Evandro, to the
Yeah.
Brazilian team,
Yeah, he blocked him 10 times.
10 times in
Because
one match.
Avandro's 6 feet 11 inches tall.
Yes, I know.
He's huge.
I, I
That's an
yeah, I will send you the video, the YouTube link, so you can
okay.
watch this guy. They were world under 19 runner
Uh-huh.
up the world championship
What's him?
in 3 years ago, and in the semifinal, this team they defeated the Norwegian team. Anders Small and the other guy.
Maul and Sonam?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
defeated them in
yeah.
the semifinal. I will send you that.
Wow. Wow.
I think they're great.
Yeah,
I hope they can make the Mexico number two team for the Olympics. They have all the potential.
that would be great. Yeah, if they beat them, and because that's the team right now, right? That team is so strong, Norway, and to beat them anytime is a big deal. So it just shows you the caliber of your players and the possibility. The big key is just consistency, right? Being able to do it consistently.
Yeah, well, we hope so.
Yeah.
Dane, please tell us something about your beginnings. I know that you played indoor in California, in Pepperdine. You made the college. How was your beginnings? And then how was your turn to get involved more in beach volleyball?
Yeah, it's interesting because my family was from New York. Is from New York, and they moved to Southern California right before I was born. So I have a couple of older brothers, and they actually were born in New York. So moving to the West and moving to Southern California, I was exposed to beach volleyball more. And we used to have a tournament that used to come around to the Laguna Beach area in Orange County. It was called the Jose Cuervo AVP, and that was when St. John Smith, Randy Stoklos, Tim Hovland, Mike Dodd, um, Akatubby, and Frohoff. A lot of these like names that you may know or you may not know, but
Yes, I
Wow.
know. I'm older than I look. Yes, I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
all of them play. Yeah.
Well, these guys, we would actually go down, me and my older brothers, the night before to spend the night at the beach to get a good seat because there was no grandstands. You just people were on the beach and it would just go so far. And if you weren't there by 6, 7 in the morning, you were like 15 rows back. And so it was important. And then these guys would come and play, and it was just incredible. I thought, how fun would it be to play volleyball, to get paid for it, to compete on the beaches all around the world? What a great life, right? And so I started to follow that track, but everybody always told me, you got to go to school, you got to get your degree in education. And there's no beach volleyball in college for men. So my route had to be the indoor game. So I worked hard in high school, got a scholarship to go to Pepperdine, and played there, won a national championship in 1992. And then once I graduated, I knew I wanted to be on the beach and playing professionally. I didn't want to play indoor. I wanted to play on the beach. And so I went that direction and qualified for the tour, and finally won my first event in 97 in Hermosa Beach. That was playing with a partner. His name was Canyon Seaman. And
I
we
remember
beat
him.
we beat Jose Loyola and Ken Steffes in overtime in the finals of Hermosa. That was my first victory. And then I teamed up with Eric Fenoy Moana. We played for a few years, a little on and off, hot and cold. But then we got hot in 2000 when we went to Sydney. And you know the story with that, winning the gold medal after being seeded ninth. So it was a bit of an underdog situation and a huge upset to beat Zamarco and Ricardo at the time from Brazil, who was hands down the best team out on tour. And from there, I made it a goal to go back to the Olympics, and ended up back in the Olympics in 2004. And around 2006, 7, I started getting into broadcasting, and really was doing a lot of volleyball. But then I got an opportunity to work in the NBA as a sideline reporter for Fox Sports, and worked with the Los Angeles Clippers for about 5 years. And then I got into coaching in 2015. So continued to do the broadcasting and do the coaching. Excuse me.
No problem.
And then the head coaching job opened up at the University of Southern California, USC. And after being 4 years as an assistant coach, then after taking a year off, I got the head coaching job about a year ago now, July, a year ago. And it's been a year, but unfortunately our season got canceled. So I can't wait to get next year here, but I want, hopefully everything gets cleared and we get safe, and we get to the point to where we can play sports regularly. And so everybody's looking out for how's the NBA going to do, how's football going to do, how's baseball going to do, and if those are positive, then we'll be in a better spot. But that kind of brings me up to now. You said you wanted a little history. Well, that's it. And now coaching, still doing the broadcasting. I will work for NBC in the Tokyo Olympics if they happen, and working for Amazon and NBC for the AVP events. And it's just having a great time.
And this broadcasting job came for accident, or you were looking for that? You studied journalism in
Yeah,
college?
well, I was thinking close to that time that I was probably going to start to get out of the sport in terms of playing anymore, because I started in 94, played till probably around 2008, 2010, so roughly 15 years. And I knew I needed to do something different, but I wanted to stay around sports and I wanted to stay involved as much as I could. So I picked it up and practiced, and was pretty bad at the beginning, and slowly got a little better. You know how it is.
Yes, I know. And no, are you returning to NBA probably, or not? Not in the
No, I don't think so. Now with my coaching job is just too busy. I couldn't do that. I mean, when I was with the NBA, they have 82 games a year, and I was flying with the team on the plane. And so it was a lot of work. You know, you're like living out of your suitcase.
Yes, yes, I think so. Dain, please explain us something about the uh, how you play college beach volleyball, because I think it's very, very different how the way we play here in Mexico college beach volleyball. I have seen the last 2 years this
Yep.
tournament in Gulf Shores in
Yeah.
Alabama. It's played among it's a whole team, right? Or
Yeah.
6 or 8 players play in different courts. Can you explain us something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 5 teams that are on your starting lineup. So you have 5 pairs, and you're supposed to rank those pairs 1 through 5 in terms of their ability to, who's best in the number 1 spot, and then down 2, 3, 4, and 5. Every court or every pair plays 1 match against the opposition's pair. And basically, every point is the same. So if you win on the number 1 court, it's the same as winning on the number 5 court. It's worth 1 point. So you have 5 matches going. Whatever school wins 3 out of 5 wins what they call the duel between the 2 schools. So you could lose at the number 1 and 2 spot, but win at the 3, 4, and 5 spot, and you would win. So there's 5 different pairs. They're all equally important. And so it's really interesting, right? Because it usually comes down to 1 court that will make the difference, right? And so the crowd is all on 1 court, and then they run to the other court. And it's a fascinating format because no one else has this format. And it's really, really exhilarating and exciting because all of a sudden you think you're winning, it's close, but everything starts to change, and the courts change and the scores change, and all of a sudden you're losing. And it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for the coaches, because we have a head coach and then 2 assistants, so 3 total. But there's 5 matches going, so you only have 3 coaches and 5 matches. So you're running around, and you try to leave the players that you think can handle it, and maybe go over here and help another team, and then you're back. So it's a little crazy, but it's, like I said, very exhilarating, lots of fun, and very exciting for the fan.
For example, if you USC play against UCLA, the 5 courts start at the same time.
That's an interesting question. Most facilities only have 3 courts, so we'll have 2 waves of play. Like maybe there'll be 2 matches, and then there'll be 3 matches. At the national championship, usually they have all 5 courts going at the same time. But when it gets down to the finals, they usually run 4 and 5 first, and then 1, 2, and 3 second, so that you can see more of the action. So I would say traditionally it's not all at the same time, but sometimes it is. I think it's a little crazier when it's all 5 at the same time. As a coach, you prefer having the 2 first and then the 3, but the format changes quite a bit for sure. But our facility has 3 courts. UCLA has 3 courts as well. Stanford has 4 courts. So every facility is a little bit different.
Yeah, well, obviously, I was talking about the national championship, but you have a qualification tournament in different regions, and then go to nationals.
Well, we'll play all year long. So they take 3 teams from the West, 3 teams from the East, and 2 wildcard teams. So eight total, and we're trying to get that number expanded to 12, because it'd be nice to have a few more teams there, and I think a few more teams that are deserving of it. But so you want to be one of the best teams on the West, one of the best on the East, and then hopefully if you don't make those 2, then maybe you're picked to be one of these 2 at-large picks in the middle. So it's a great format.
And well, Gulf Shores is a beautiful place, right? To do that.
Oh yeah, the first time I went there, I was a little skeptical about it, but I mean, when you go, it's beautiful, right? Like the white sand and the beautiful beach and the horizon, and it's just a really nice setup. It's really a nice setup, and it's been there every single year. Will it change? Will it go somewhere else? I think it will eventually, but they've done a fantastic job of putting on a great event, and it's a treat just to make it there. You know, a lot of teams have never been before.
Okay, and on the men's side is the same format. I know that always men's volleyball they have fewer programs than women, but there are also national championship of men's beach volleyball.
So there's no men's beach volleyball yet. Men's is like a kind of a club sport, and it hasn't grown to that point. It's interesting, you know, sports in college are very interesting. They have to be kind of balanced between males and females, and it just hasn't got to the point where they've created a men's beach volleyball division, unfortunately. But the women, it's one of the fastest growing sports in college for sure. And I don't know if there'll ever be a men's beach volleyball at the collegiate level, but it seems like the women's side has a lot of momentum, and I hope it continues to grow. I hope that there's more, like I said, teams that get to go to the national championship, and ESPN does a great job of airing it as well. And so, you know, I got to broadcast that in 2019, right before I got the job at SC, and so it's such a fun sport. It's so cool, and the format's so great. But unfortunately, I don't know if there'll ever be a men's side of it, but who knows?
Yes, and do you know how many programs of beach volleyball are in college?
I want to say there's somewhere between 75 and 100. Which to compare that, there's about 330 indoor women's teams. And so indoor women's volleyball is at almost every university, whereas beach is still growing. And but it is an inexpensive sport in terms of a college adding it, because usually it's outside. Usually it's about building the court. You don't have to build a big arena, but as it grows, you might see it in cold weather areas, and then you would have to build an indoor type of facility, which drives the cost up a little bit. But it's great, you know, having the courts, you know, right on campus. The most of these schools, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's created more opportunities for women to play volleyball.
Yes, of course, I do agree with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Then please, well, I want to talk about. Uh, I want your opinion about whose are the biggest difference between AVP volleyball and FIVB beach volleyball.
Wow. The international game is a lot deeper, right? There's more teams because you're dealing with teams from around the world. So you're getting the best teams from each country. So it drives the level of play up considerably. Um, I would say the international game is closer to an indoor game. It's a lot quicker. You have a lot of, most of the athletes are a little taller on the international circuit, because I think you see a lot of indoor players transferring over. Um, but at the end of the day, it's volleyball. At the end of the day, you're playing volleyball. It's just a slightly different style, maybe a little more quicker tempo internationally. But, you know, I think the biggest thing about the international tour, which as it should be, the depth of talent is so strong, because it's just so deep. Like I said, you're getting the best couple of teams, two, three, four teams from each country, and you're putting them all in the same pot. And so there is no easy matches internationally. You know, maybe domestically you might have that first round match that if you're a top seed, it's not that bad. But internationally, right out of the gate, you're playing a team that can defeat a very high seed always. So that would be the biggest thing: the depth of talent, and how deep it goes in terms of so many great teams.
Yeah, and what I'm talking about mid '90s when you turn to beach.
Yeah.
Which did you consider at that time the biggest difference between the American beach volleyball and Brazilian beach volleyball?
You know what? There wasn't a ton of difference. It was just always a huge rivalry, and even when Hovland and Dodd were playing and Stokos and Smith, they would go to Brazil in those 90s for those early world championships that were played in Brazil, and the rivalry was so strong. It was, I've seen old footage of lines a mile long to get into the arena in Rio de Janeiro, and but the volleyball was similar. I think the styles were similar, but the rivalry was at such a level that I don't know if we see that same rivalry. And now also the rest of the world is caught up. There's so many great teams in so many different countries that didn't exist 20 years ago. The beach volleyball. So it's you have teams like Switzerland, Germany, um,
The Latvian guys are amazing, I think.
Latvia, yeah, it's like in Norway, right? Like these teams were good teams, and there's always had some good players, but there's just more countries and more great players that just keep coming up, and it's just elevating the sport to another level. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I think I have thought, sorry, for a long time that beach volleyball is a more democratic sport, because for countries like Norway, for example, or for Latvia, it could be almost impossible to get their indoor volleyball team to the Olympics, and with beach, they have all the opportunity.
You think they have more opportunity on the beach?
Yes, of course, to qualify for to Olympic Games
Yeah.
instead of
Why do you think? Why do you think it's different?
no, well, I think that because as you told before, there are only two players in the team. There are more uh, starting because there are more teams in the Olympics in beach than in indoor, I think. For
Mhm.
example, 4 years ago, Costa Rica came to Mexico and beat the female Mexican team, and they went to the Olympics, and the Mexican team stayed at home. So I think more countries has the possibility to go to the Olympics in
Yeah.
beach instead of indoor. Don't you agree?
Yeah, because you have that one team representing your entire country. So, you have the two teams, you have almost twice the opportunity. And I know the Olympic committees look at it like, oh, with beach, we could actually win two medals because we have multiple teams, whereas indoor, you just have the one team going. And yeah, it is, it's very interesting and the, to compare and contrast indoor and beach because they're so different, right? There's just two people as opposed to six. You don't have substitutes. In indoor you have six substitutes waiting to come in, and you don't have the rotations on the beach. And it's a very different game, but at the same time, it's still volleyball, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, I do agree with you. Um, then, how do you think the pro sports? How do you think will be the comeback of the pro sports? Uh, Obviously in volleyball, in beach volleyball, but in MLB, in NBA, and NFL. Um, Obviously, NFL, I think, will start with no fans or a little amount of fans. How do you think these big leagues can adjust to this new reality?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge, right? I think I would say basketball has the biggest challenge because it's such a physical sport and there's really no barrier between the players. You have to get close. Sometimes you're right, it's right there, in basketball playing to defend the player on the post. That's going to be a challenge. Football with all the equipment is going to be an issue. Baseball, I think baseball will be okay. You can practice some social distancing in baseball, but everyone is watching to see how the NFL, how the NBA, how the MLB, how they roll out, and if it's safe for the athlete, and if they can sustain, this regardless of the fans. but it's all about testing, right? You got to have constant testing almost every other day or whatever it is. But the more these other entities succeed, then the more possibility it is that we have collegiate sports and we have the smaller sports, aside from the big three, right? Aside from basketball, football, baseball. But golf is doing a great job right now. Their season is going on. That happens to be a very, very good sport in terms of being able to distance. You don't have to be anywhere near your opponent ever if you don't want to. So, but like I said, I think basketball will have the biggest challenges to streamline and keep it. But I think our sport, beach volleyball, is a great sport as well. You have the net in between. You only have one partner, and I think the way that the AVP did it this year, in this last week in Long Beach, is been really successful. I just hope they can keep it up.
Yes, I hope so too,
Yeah,
Dain.
yeah.
Well, let's go back a little for your beach volleyball career. Tell us something about the process of seeing it. You told me that you were in a seed in ninth place. How was the competition? How was the development, the transition from one game to another? And at which time did you and your partner think you can reach the final and the gold medal at the end?
Yeah, it was interesting because qualification is 2 years long, right? And at the time, it was based on our best 8 finishes. Now I think it's your best 12 finishes for teams. And so we were always trying to make it in the top 2 teams in the United States because only 2 teams go. And we qualified for those top 2 teams to be the second team. We qualified on the very last qualification tournament in Belgium in 2000, which was probably 45 days prior to the Olympics. So we qualified very late. We were competing so hard all the way up into the last event, whereas a lot of teams already knew they were going to the Olympics. And so I think that helped us that we were fighting so hard and it was never a sure thing. And we qualified so late. Then we said, you know what, let's go down there and play as hard as we can, 1 point at a time. And we also had some motivation because a lot of people didn't give us any credit, really, like, oh, maybe somebody else should be going. You guys are not that consistent. You haven't been playing that well. That was a motivating factor for us. And so we said, let's play 1 point at a time, leave the last play behind. And it's easy to say that, right? It's a different thing to go out and do it. So we played the first match. We beat Germany. I believe it was 15-7. Then we beat Norway 15-13. And remember, this was the old school scoring, right? You had to serve to
Yeah.
score. And then the third round, we played an American team, Wong and Hyger, and that was a big rivalry. We ended up winning that 15-2, and it was maybe our most impressive game of the Olympics. And then we played Portugal, a team that had gotten 4th place in the '96 Olympics, which is probably the hardest place to finish when you're one step away from the podium. And so we played them in the semis, and we barely beat them after some controversy with the referee's call, and we won 15-12, and that put us in the final, and against Ricardo and Zamarco at the time. And even when we got there, no one really was still giving us a shot, but we went as hard as we could. And if you watch on the final point when Eric hits a block, I'm very shocked because I'm so locked into playing the next point. But you realize at that point, there's no more points to play, that it's over. And so I think the streamlining of playing 1 point at a time was the biggest takeaway, not to be distracted. It's very important when you go to the Olympics that you have someone in between you and everyone else, whether it's even family trying to get tickets, or there's always a distraction, and you have to distance yourself from that so that you can stay focused. And then if you can clear your mind, a lot of people lose when they go to the Olympics because there's too much noise in their head. And it's a challenge, a lot of things have to line up correctly to be successful at that level and in that magnitude of a tournament, because it is so big. And sometimes we blow it out of proportion, like, oh my gosh, I have to play the best volleyball ever right now, and the pressure begins, rather than just try to perform at the best and do every movement, and don't pay attention to the score. Pay attention to your next play, because if you're successfully paying attention to that next play constantly, the score takes care of itself.
And, can you say that the gold medal match was the most difficult, or there were another?
They were all difficult. The semifinals were very difficult. The finals was very difficult. I wouldn't say one over the other. I say the pressure in the gold medal match, just the magnitude of the situation was pretty amazing. And I can't say that it was harder than the semifinals. I think it was just different, that it was just a different deal. It was tough because we played that team from Brazil. We played 4 previous times that year, and we lost every time. So every time we were taking notes and trying to figure out what we needed to adjust to beat them. And I think sometimes when you're on the losing end of that many matches, you're learning. And when you're on the victorious end of that, sometimes you take it for granted. So I'm sure that when we got to the finals against those guys, they were probably thinking, we've done this 4 times before, let's just make it another 5th time.
And which do you think were the biggest adjustments you have to do against that Brazilian team? You as a team.
The biggest advantages?
No. What the biggest adjustment you have to do as a team?
Well, it came down to us being consistent. We would always give away some silly points. So every team, you look at it, and like, if you played against, let's say, Karch Karai, right, or like a Phil Dahlhauser, that team's only going to give you probably 2 or 3 opportunities to beat them. Right? They're just not going to make the errors. So you as yourself have to eliminate those errors. You have to capitalize when you make that defensive play. You got to put that ball away in the broken play. And what we changed was on our side. We were more consistent, and we were able to make the plays that previously we couldn't make.
Okay, great. So. And talking about that gold medal match, there was an additional pressure, thinking that in the previous Olympics, the first in Orlando, Karch won the gold, the USA won the gold. There was an extra pressure in that gold medal match for you?
No, not at all. More of a confidence, you almost feel like, hey, I got to keep up the reputation. So I didn't look at it as pressure, more like, we belong here. This is what we do. The sport was started, we always say, started in the U.S. and in Manhattan Beach, or some say in Hawaii. But I didn't look at it as pressure. I looked at it as more of, we belong here. We've made it here. Let's continue the tradition. And how cool. The men won in 96, the men won in 2000, then the men win again in 2008. And so that's why we've been, such a dominant team in the Olympic Games, and Brazil has done the same thing. I think Brazil won in 2004 with Ricardo and Emmanuel, and then they won in 2016. Right, and with Bruno and Alisson. So if you're keeping score, the United States has 3, Brazil has 2, and Germany got 2012 with Julius Brink and Jonas Reckerman. And I've had the pleasure of working with Julius Brink, commentating internationally, which has been a lot of fun. But the pressure, that was why we were successful. We didn't succumb to the pressure. We turned that pressure into, hey, we're supposed to be here. This is a good time. Let's go.
Okay, great, Dain. Yeah. Well, I have a few questions for you from the feed. Octavio Medina, very good friend, Mexican, now living in Seattle, Washington, says, Dain, if you were a player in the process for 2021 Olympic qualifiers, which would be your greatest threats and or opportunities with this corona issue? If you were involved as a player in this time for the Olympics.
I
And
mean, I think the biggest threat is the ability to train regularly and to practice, because I think training and practice has all been inhibited, right? The beaches are closed here in Southern California, so people are having to try creative ways to try to practice.
like
And
April
so,
Ross in his backyard.
yeah, exactly. So that I think is the biggest obstacle that the virus, in terms of being a player, to be able to do it consistently, because it's very different than if it were normal. There's a lot of obstacles now to overcome, and so you have to keep that training up and stay healthy on top of that, of course.
Yes, of course. Well, Octavio Medina also he have another question. He says, "What was the base of your confidence for you and your partner before you played the final in Sydney 2000? What was on your mind?" I think you already answered that question, right?
Yeah, it was the process of getting there gave us the confidence. So once we got there, I think we were tested in qualification, and then when we got to the Olympics, it was like, hey, this is all a bonus right now. We already know we've handled the pressure to get here. Now let's have some fun.
And which do you think was the impact of that gold medal for USA again, repeating the gold in Atlanta in '96?
Well, I think it was huge. I mean, it helps, and anything helps, especially when you're having success on a global level. It helps back home when you're trying to build the sport even more. So, of course, Karch Karai and Ken Steffes winning the first one was huge. That was motivational for us winning the second one. And then you had Misty May, trainer, and Kerry Walsh Jennings winning three in a row in 2000, 2004, and 2012. And so it's a rich tradition in the United States, and I think it continues to be a rivalry with Brazil, I think, but all these other countries are growing and becoming extremely very strong, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2021, and I really hope that it happens.
Yeah. Then, and you know that a few years ago, I don't remember exactly how much, 8 or 10, the size of the court was reduced in beach. Which other big innovation did you think can come for beach volleyball in the next few years?
How the court affected beach volleyball?
No, no, no. Which other changes or breakthroughs do you think can happen in beach volleyball in the next few years?
Oh, what can be changed in the next few years? You know what I like, and it's not happening on the international level, is the freeze rule that the AVP has. Are you familiar with the freeze?
No, no. Please explain.
So when you get to match point in any match, once you get to match point, not set point, but match point,
Right,
the score freezes.
right,
So at that point, so say I won the first set, and then we're in the second set, and I get to 20, right? I get to 20 and you have 18. So I'm at match point, right? If I get 21, I win the match. But at that point, at 20, the score freezes, which means you go back to regular scoring when you have to serve. So you can't win on receiving serve and siding out. You have to actually score a point while serving
right.
at that point. So not only does the team that is at match point freeze, but it freezes for the opposition as well. So I've seen comebacks from 20 to 13. I've seen 13 chip all the way back to win. And you still have to win by two, but you finish that set by old school scoring, serving to score the point. It's fascinating because if you're up 13 to 20 in a regular rally score game, you're
You're
not
out.
coming back. It's just, I mean, the chances are like this, right? But Donald's son created this rule. He's the CEO of the AVP, and it's just a great rule. It's so cool because there's pressure on finishing that last point. It's not, and when you're in the freeze, the let serve is illegal. So if the
The
ball
what?
hits
Sorry.
the let, when a let serve, when you touch the net, like in tennis,
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
so you know how normally that's live in beach volleyball, right? You see the ball trickle over the net. If you serve and hit the net when you're in the freeze, you get a reserve. And if you miss the reserve, it's a fault.
Right.
So yeah, it's fascinating. If you watch the Amazon broadcast or the NBC broadcast, you'll see the freeze. Notice when it gets to match point, the commentators will tell you we're now entering the freeze. You have to serve the ball to score a point. And I think that's one of the best rules that, as of, I think it's only maybe 4 years old. And I would like to see the international circuit adopt that rule, because it's great. Who wants to see a championship won or lost on a missed serve or
Nobody.
a trickle serve over the net? Silly. So I hope that gets adopted on the international level, because it's here to stay on the AVP for sure.
Yes, yes, I hope so too. It sounds great. I will watch
Yeah, watch for it.
the next weekend for that. But sometimes I think it's my opinion. International volleyball sometimes is so formal. So this is the rule. We have been doing this for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So
Yeah.
we have to keep the game the same. And you in AVP, in NCAA, you are more aggressive in that, you to try some new rules.
Yeah, because you want something that's exciting for the fans, and I would agree with you 100%. The FIVB is great, but it's very formal. But it also needs to be formal, because you're dealing with so many different cultures and so many different languages, and so I understand it, but would be nice to make slight adjustments.
Yes, of course. Yesterday I was talking with Casey Parson, and
Yeah.
I asked him the next question, same to you. um, what do you think the AVP needs to do? I think I know that you want it, but that a lot of people from other countries can come to AVP, so they can be, or AVP can be a multicultural league like NBA, like MLB. I can't imagine MLB without all the Dominican players, no?
Mhm.
And right now, it doesn't happen in AVP. It's more on the AVP side or on the FIVB side.
So you're saying, what would it take to be more diversified on the AVP?
Yeah, that the best Brazilian players can come to AVP and
Yeah,
can play Ricardo Santos. Well, Ricardo Santos is not an example, but Bruno
yeah,
can play with Casey Patterson, or
hmm,
Allison can play as a partner with Reed Pretty.
yeah, yeah,
It's more in the
yeah.
AVP side or the FIVB side.
That's a great question. I don't know who holds it back. It'd be nice if it was wide open, and people could play, but at the same time, you want to preserve that it is an American tour. If it's an American tour, if you're trying, I don't think the AVP is trying to be an international tour, but I think there is value of bringing in international players at times. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's almost like internationally, there's always been that argument of getting rid of the quota of how many teams, right? You only can have 3 teams from one country sign up. When people say, well, what if we have 8 great teams from Brazil and 8 great teams from the United States? Why can't everyone play? And it'd be like, I guess tennis, international tennis would be like that. It's because the FIVB is constantly trying to expand the sport and include other countries, because it would be very easy for the tour to turn into USA versus Brazil. And so I think there's value in opening it up so you have the best teams regardless of what country they're from. And I think on the AVP, I think there's value in bringing in international players, but you don't want it to become an international tour unless that's your aim.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think there's value to it. I always loved when Emmanuel would come over and play on the AVP, and I think Pedro Salgado played before in one tournament, and it's exciting. You know, it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's just a thought. I was
Yeah.
just thinking about that.
Yeah. One can dream, right? It's a dream.
Yeah. Dain, which was the most difficult player or the most challenging player for you during your playing years?
A player that I had to compete against, who was the
Yes.
most challenging?
Yes. In blocking, I don't know, in serving, in
Well, I
attacking.
think in overall, you know, I had the pleasure of playing against Karch Karai for many years, and he was in that race to make it to the Olympics in 2000. You know, and it was a big rivalry between myself and Eric against Adam Johnson and Karch Karai for some time, and I always loved to play against Karch because a very classy player, a very great sportsman, but he always pushed you. You know, you had to play your best game against him or you would lose. So I think I always played at a higher level, and I learned to play at a higher level playing against competition like Karch, and such a great competitor.
And talking about internationally beach volleyball.
Oh, an international player who was always
Yeah.
difficult. So many, so many. Um, you know, I think
I
Emmanuel.
I don't want to say the best. I want to say the most challenging for you, the most difficult for you.
Yeah. Emmanuel was a big obstacle for me to always get through. Ricardo. Trying to think of guys right off the top of my head, and yeah, the Brazilians always come to mind. You know, the Brazilians always come to mind, but there were so many great players. It's really hard, and now there's even more great players. But yeah, I would say, let's say Emmanuel Rigo.
Okay, yeah, those two are great players. Then we're almost done with the hour, but I wanna ask you something else. Which is your favorite Mexican food?
Oh man, probably tacos.
Because Chipotle is not Mexican food.
Yeah, like what type of food? I mean, like
Yeah, what type of food? Or
like street tacos are the best. I mean, I eat everything. I love burritos, uh, chimichangas. I'd say burritos and tacos are what I eat most, but I'm a huge fan of chips and guacamole.
wow.
It's great, and yeah, one of my favorite Mexican food is one of my favorite foods for sure. You can't go wrong. You can never go wrong with that.
No, never. You can never go wrong with pork, like
Yeah.
carnitas or like something
Oh
like that.
yeah, carnitas are the best. Beans and rice. I mean, it's perfect.
Hey, guess who guess who we have here? Lori Okimura says Dane is one of the best ambassadors for beach volleyball worldwide. Grateful for his contributions.
Oh yeah, Lori's great. She's one of my great old friends. We've been friends for nearly 30 years. So, and she's done so many great things for the sport, and it's 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 always great. You have to tell her I said you need to type back to her and tell her I said hello, because she's awesome.
Yeah, well, she's the reason we are talking right now with you.
She's always making connections.
Thanks a lot, Lori. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you, Lori.
I have one more question for you. Which do you think are the main differences between the volleyballs of the 90s with the volleyballs of today?
Oh my gosh, the actual ball.
The actual ball.
Oh man, they've come a long way. But I started playing on the Spalding Top Flight, which was this old leather ball that if it got wet, it would weigh a ton. And the innovation has come such a long way. And I think the Wilson ball now is nice. I'm not sure the new optic ball, the new optics ball.
It's like a
I
green,
haven't.
right?
What's that?
It's like green or
Yeah, it almost looks like a soccer ball or a football, like the design on it. I can't really give you an opinion on that because I haven't played with it, but the balls that we use at college and on the pro circuit a year ago were the same, and now they're a little bit different with the optic ball. But I always loved the Wilson ball. But I'll tell you what, those old Spalding balls, you'd be lucky if you found one that was really truly round because they were stitched differently, and so there was a lot of inconsistencies. But at the end of the day, you got to play with a ball, right? And it doesn't matter. I remember training for the Olympics in 2000. We would play with players from the United States, and we would have to play half the practice with the AVP ball and half the practice with the international ball because they wanted to play with the AVP ball. We wanted to play with the international ball because we were going on a trip. So the ball continues to change. I think it's faster. I think it's smaller. And I think it's more controllable now than it's ever been.
you know that here in Mexico, we 95% of the people in beach plays with Molten. We in Mexico, almost nobody plays Wilson. Wilson is here in Mexico. Well, the balls that Wilson sells here in Mexico, it's almost for recreational play.
Interesting.
Like a weekend barbecue in the park, something
Yeah,
like that. But almost nobody plays here with Wilson.
that's funny. Yeah, every country is very different, right? And that's interesting. That's interesting.
Okay, well, Dain, thanks a lot. It has been a very entertaining talk with you. Thanks a lot. I'm very glad that you accepted the invitation. Thanks to Lori for connecting us. I don't know if you want to say some final words for us, please.
No, I want to say thank you for having me on, and obviously thank Lori for connecting us. And I'm happy we were able to do this. But it's all about promoting the sport and making the sport better on a global level. And so anything that we can do or that I can do to help you and promote the sport as you're doing, just like with this webcast. So I think you said you're on episode number 79, is it?
78 with you.
78, which just keep it going, and you've had some fantastic guests. So the more information, the better, and keep up with it. And if you ever need me again, then I'd be happy to join your program.
Thanks a lot, Dain. For tomorrow, please don't miss Jeremy Ruche will be here at same time, and on Friday, the five-time Olympian Daniel Scott will be here.
Nice. Tell Roche I said hello.
I will tell him for sure. He's a
He's
great
a good guy.
He's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
guy. Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot, Dain. Keep safe. Stay home. The most possible.
All right. Thanks so much.
I will watch you on weekend on TV. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Dain. See ya.
All right. Bye bye.